Everyone. My name is Jack Fritzinger. I'm very excited to be moderating this next panel, the title of which is Diverting the Best Talent into Climate Tech. So let's go ahead and dive right in. We've got two amazing panelists joining me for the conversation today, Anshuman Bapna and Dolly Singh. Let's get them on the screen here. Hey, Anshuman. And
Hi, everyone.
there's Dolly. Hello to you both. By way of quick introductions, Anshuman is a serial entrepreneur with several successful ventures under his belt. He's currently the founder and CEO of Terra.do, the world's largest platform for climate work. Terra.do has an amazing goal of getting 100 million people working on climate in the next decade. So welcome, Anshuman. And Dolly is here with us as well. Dolly has led growth at game-changing companies across aerospace, consumer technology, finance, and SaaS for over 20 years. She's the co-founder of Earth Partners, which is an advisory and talent services firm working to catalyze the climate tech industry. Hi, Dolly, and welcome.
Thanks, Jack. Glad to be here.
So the goal of our conversation today is to figure out and share with the audience, how can we open our doors to more talented, solution-driven professionals working on climate? And I want to take the opportunity with you to look at this topic both from the talent side and from the hiring side. But let's start first with the talent. I often see job listings out there at climate companies that require applicants to have climate experience. And I'm curious in your thoughts on how important is it for individuals to have a holistic understanding of the climate crisis before jumping in to work on a specific solution?
I'm happy to jump in with that, Jack. So I would say that employers actually do not care as much about a holistic understanding of climate solutions. In fact, I think what we've heard, and Dolly will have a lot more points around that, is that employers are the main signal that they're looking for is one, of course, that you're good at the functional expertise that you have. If you're a software engineer, then you're good at software engineering. But second, that you have this deep intent to work in climate. All sectors are hard. Climate tech is just as hard as any, if not harder. And a lot of the companies here are even they're sub unicorn, and some of them are unicorns, and there'll be many more. But these are still early days. This is still day one, which means that the kind of talent they're looking for has to be motivated beyond just making money into working in climate. With that, if you turn the tables and look at individuals, and at Terra, we run many cohort-based programs of people who are looking to transition into climate, including for software engineers and designers and so on. And the biggest reason why we have them come into these programs when we ask them is this fundamental question about climate is literally everything under the sun. How do I even begin to map this out in my head and then start intersecting it with the skills that I have and the values that I have? And this is a non-trivial problem, right? Because a lot of people are coming into climate because they want to make a difference. They want to have an impact. And if you're not able to yet grasp why, for example, regenerative agriculture might be as big a climate solution as carbon capture through olivine rocks, then your challenge would be that you would come in and you would very quickly deep dive and commit yourself to a path which is frankly a multi-decade path. This is a big sector, big problems. So we have found that what is this whole holistic landscape understanding is the most empowering for individuals, for them to very quickly understand what's going on and where they fit into this entire landscape.
Absolutely. Dolly, would love to hear your thoughts as well on that.
I think Anshuman nailed that. The one thing I would add is if you're a candidate, if you are a person listening to this somewhere and you are hesitating in your pursuit because you think I have to have some prerequisite set of experience, please don't do that. It took all of us to get in this mess. It's going to take a whole lot of us to get out of this mess. And I think what's most important really is like your track record of prior success in whatever domain. So if you're somebody who can get stuff done, I'll use the G-rated version of that acronym. If you can get stuff done and prove that you're capable of really generating alpha across multiple scenarios, then any climate company will likely be happy to take you. It's just about finding those cross connections, right? Where is there enough analog between what you've done and what needs to be done that we can set you up to be successful? But I think there's going to be a multitude of opportunity, not just engineering and technology, but business development, sales, customer service. All of the things that have been done in the rest of the world will now need to get applied to climate in a really meaningful and focused way. So anybody and everybody should be welcome under this tent. It is a very big tent. And so I would encourage people not to be too worried about that. Use the resources available, like Terra.do and ClimateBase and My Climate Journey. And you can find a lot of information just to be able to familiarize yourself with what might I want to do, but then go after it, right? Because I think hesitating, we don't have time for hesitation. We don't have a lot of time to waste. And so I would just encourage everybody to not let that be a barrier for you personally. Find a way to get connected and network with people working in the space. And then the rest will kind of, I think, figure itself out. If you lead with your passion and your intent, which I think is the core of what Anshuman also said, which is really caring about the problem. I think that's the most important prerequisite, and everything else in terms of domain experience will work itself out.
Absolutely. Love it. This is a massive opportunity, as you've heard from both Anshuman and Dolly. We don't have time to wait. I think you'll find the people in the climate space to be incredibly welcoming and helpful on your journey in finding jobs and in finding opportunities. Both Anshuman and Dolly mentioned a few of the resources that are out there to help you. Evan from ClimateBase at the previous session mentioned a few, and I think Candace in the session after this one will also share a few. So you have lots of tools and resources available to you, and the key is that mission alignment. If you want to make it happen, you can. Let's take a moment and flip the script a bit, look at it from the perspective of the hiring managers. How can companies and hiring managers improve the avenues for people to start working in climate? And Dolly, why don't we start with you on this one?
I mean, I think that most climate companies have a great mission, right? And they have a great calling, but that's no longer really a differentiator because every company claims to have a mission-driven approach and a great culture. So I think the key for each company is really understanding who your tribe is. And I'll give you an example of that. Let's take ServiceTitan, which is a SaaS company that I worked with for a while as an example. So ServiceTitan needs software engineers, and everybody in the world needs software engineers. And if you're a company doing plumbing or contractor software, it's like in theory unsexy, right? But the reality is it's a $1 trillion market segment. And so we had to figure out who are the right engineers for this company in a very competitive space. And what was authentic to that team and that brand and that creation story was you have two immigrant founders who really come from this salt of the earth background and this sense of humility. That's what really bound them together and created their culture. And so making sure that that was clear in how they were recruiting, right? This immigrant spirit, the spirit of serving the underserved, all of those things became key focus points of the brand because that allowed us not just to hire people, but to hire the right people for this company that were going to be motivated and aligned to that company's mission and allow people not just to be acquired, but retained. Talent in this market is no longer an acquisition game. It is a retention game. So bringing people in that then don't resonate and it's like not the right tribe, that's not actually productive. And the best companies won't be built that way. It's really isolating and identifying the right people. A second quick example, and then I'd love to hear what Anshuman has to say about this, is SpaceX, right? We needed intense people that want to work in insane high pressure circumstances. So it is like SpaceX's Special Forces. That was the brand. And so we wanted to attract a very specific type of person. So for anybody who's a hiring manager and or a founder and you're looking to attract talent, you have to really know who you are and what you want to build. And then you have to go out there and authentically tell that story. And then it's a numbers game like any other sales, right? You got to build the funnel and you got to tell that story to enough great people that you're able to convert some of them into members of your flock, essentially. So I would say know who you are, know what differentiates you, know what makes that compelling, and then tell that story to the people you think it will connect with the most, such that you can not just hire them, but that they will be highly motivated, butt-kicking members and contributors of your team and builders of your future vision. I'll stop there.
I think so. Dolly, thanks for that. I think I'll add two things for the founders and the hiring managers in the audience right now, which is that I think we all, I'm definitely one of those founders, have a major discovery problem. And the discovery problem is that, and I'll give you two examples, two companies that I just love. One of them actually builds software for utilities to allow EVs to plug into them at scale, a company called VGrid, right? Which of you, until you kind of got activated in climate, ever even thought that you wanted to work on a customer like a PG&E, right? That was not what you woke up every morning for. And yet it turns out it's one of the most critical leverage points for climate solutions right now. Now, Apur is a fantastic founder. He's out there telling the VGrid story in all kinds of different venues and so on. At the other end, there is Ari, who is the founder of a company called Kairos Aerospace. And what these guys do is that they actually work with oil and gas companies, believe it or not, to fly aeroplanes over their natural gas pipelines to detect methane emissions. And again, if you're paying attention to climate crisis, methane emissions and stopping them, especially through natural gas pipelines, is one of the highest leverage points in reducing global warming. Now, both of these are pretty nerdy solutions in quote unquote unsexy industries. And yet, the only way both of them have been able to build this brand about who they are is by doing two things. Not just by listing on job boards. I mean, there are job boards, there are a lot of them. Their jobs are on LinkedIn, Indeed, Climate Base, et cetera, and they should be. But you have to go out and tell your story, and not just through the New York Times. One of the examples that we do is that we run these online job fairs every week where we'll invite 10 founders to do essentially pitches for 5 to 10 minutes on what they're building and who they're hiring for. And then what it does is that there are thousands of people at the other end. But the cool thing that happens is that these 1,000 people like yourselves, they see two things happen to them. One, they come in and say, oh, wait a second, I thought climate was all about, I don't know, carbon sequestration because that's all I read about. And it turns out there is all these crazy companies doing this diverse, amazing things. So, okay, so this is big enough for someone like me. But the second thing that happens is exactly what's hopefully happening in the audience right now, is that these individuals look around and say, oh, there are 1,000 other people with me on this call. They all want to work in climate. I'm not the only idiot who wants to kind of quit my high-paying job at Google and go work for this in climate instead. So that sense of camaraderie. So my request to founders and to hiring managers is that, look, this is a long game. You might have a hiring need for 2 or 3 people or 20 or 30 people right now, but don't think transactional. Think a lot more strategic. So go out, get yourself a lot more discovered through all these different kinds of forums, and frankly, start building a micro community around what you're doing. You're as much a hiring manager and a founder as you're an evangelist on the day one of the climate solution world that we're entering.
Fantastic. Thank you both. And some key points I picked up there is a lot of important storytelling. How do you position your company? Even if it's not a quote unquote sexy climate company, there's a lot of amazing branding that you can do to attract interest. And also that there are these incredible, somewhat undiscovered opportunities to impact climate solutions that we often miss or don't think of when we're first getting into this space. If you do a little bit of digging, you'll find those opportunities in trillion-dollar markets. So really exciting things there for all the job seekers in the audience. You both mentioned some example companies that you've had the opportunity to either work with or have through your networks. And climate, as we know, is so broad. It incorporates everything from software engineers building carbon accounting platforms to electricians and plumbers who are installing new solar fields and heat pumps. And there seems to be a bit of a workforce abundance for the former and a bit of a workforce gap for the latter. And I'm interested in your thoughts on how do we help talent flow to all of the opportunities in climate equally? Feel free to jump in, whichever one of you wants to take that one first.
I'm happy to go first. I have a couple of nuances to your question, Jack. I think one, if there are any ClimateTech founders here, one issue that they might take with what you just said was that I'm looking for electrical engineers, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers up the wazoo, and I can't find one or two, regardless of how much I'm doing. So I think there is this demand supply major mismatch on even in ClimateTech, even on the technical side, so to speak. I think the other gap that I see more on the talent side is folks who are early in their careers, and they might have an engineering background or a business background, who are really activated. And because remember, this generation which is graduating out of college right now is probably the most activated, climate activated generation we've ever had, thank God. And yet the number of early career positions that are available out there in climate tech and in climate in general are not that many. That's another gap that I see right now. I think also outside on, I think the especially on the gray collar workforce side, I think there's a massive challenge out there. So one of the companies, for example, there are many companies that are beginning to solve that, but Sam Steyer is building a company called Greenworks, which is trying to get a lot more of these technicians, whether it's HVAC or solar installers, into the workforce right now. But I think one of the misses from what used to be Build Back Better plan, and then eventually became IRA, which was still a great climate bill, was frankly a lot of government funding and support for this workforce transformation. And my worry is exactly yours, Jack, which is that there is this innovation challenge in climate, but that innovation challenge is, in my opinion, maybe 10 to 20% of the game right now. 70 to 80% of the game right now is deployment. And deployment is getting bottlenecked on these exact kind of skills right now. So if any of you in the audience are looking to potentially start companies, that's a very, very interesting, ripe area to go, both from a business standpoint and from an impact standpoint.
Jack, I wanted to make sure I understood your question correctly. Can I have you repeat it for me, please?
Yeah, I'm interested in kind of the way that we help craft the talent transition here into climate jobs so that it's not only software engineers going from tech companies into other climate tech companies, but also working at skilled trade, also looking at the transition of industries that may not exist anymore in the future to do with fossil fuels. How do we ensure that there is an equal and a just transition happening there?
Okay, very big question. And I think to Anshuman's point, production is going to be the name of the game. And we're going to see this pendulum swing back as we as a country outsourced production of everything, because we're like, we don't want to make things. It's so much better to have everybody else make things and ship them back to us. And actually that turned out to be not the best strategy, both from a national security standpoint, but also from an innovation standpoint. There's a bottleneck if you can't get things created quickly and easily. And so I think we're going to see a big resurgence in, like, even across my very limited purview, but every company I know is building their version of a gigafactory, right? Their industrial scale capability. And so there is going to be a huge shortage of what I'll call skilled trades and crafts. And so we're going to need to really think strategically across both the public and the private sector to Anshuman's point, to double down on that, to figure out how do we solve that problem. Because right now, like DOE is seeding innovation, the private sector is seeding innovation. And as all of these companies and technologies mature over the next 2 to 5 years, if anybody's ever interested, there's a great tour that Elon does of Starship on a YouTube channel called The Everyday Astronaut. And what he says on that is that we glamorize design and we under glamorize and under prioritize production, but where rubber meets the road on whether Tesla can be the company that it is or whether SpaceX can be the company that it is on production and deployment. And so that's going to require much higher level thinking. And early stage founders often have their head down in the technology. They're like tech founders. But it takes building a much larger footprint, essentially, this human machine that's going to allow you to execute successfully. So very quickly, founders need to look up from their technology mindset to their people mindset. And figuring out that workforce gap is really a critical challenge that founders are going to each have to like Band-Aid and bubblegum together solutions, while hopefully, the public sector starts to figure out how do we solve this problem at large. But the specific strategies are really to figure out where's the analogous technology. At SpaceX, even if we'd hired every experienced rocket technician in the world, we still would have been short of Elon's target by 80% because he wanted to do 50 cores a year and the world capacity was like 6 cores a year. So we had to then start thinking about what are skill sets that are similar to the things that we need, and how do we attract and retrain people? And what we did specifically was work with our local community college, El Camino College, and start building some feeder and pipeline programs. So getting ahead of that challenge and thinking through it now, I think is a great call out, Jack, for you, for founders and for talent and everybody in the ecosystem of how do we get in front of this.
Thank you both for your perspectives on that. We have about 5 minutes left here, a little bit less. Rather than ask one last specific question, I want to open the floor to the two of you to mention anything that we haven't brought up yet. I'll throw out one suggestion, which you're welcome to take or leave as you please. Anshuman, would love to hear you talk some more about the role of community. And I know Terra.do does a lot of community building, but in the process of job finding. And Dolly, I know you've spoken a bunch about how to identify top talent. And perhaps that's something you could shed some light on. But again, feel free to use these last kind of 2 minutes each, however you choose. And yeah, take it away. Anshuman, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Jack. I think that's a great prompt. My personal journey as someone who was outside climate until 2.5 years ago to someone who is in had the fundamental unlock was not learning, was definitely not a job. It was entirely community, finding my own tribe. And just to call out some of the amazing communities that are already out there in climate. There is My Climate Journey. I take pride in the fact that I was Slack member number 13 on MCJ. Another great, lovely community is workonclimate.org. Again, Eugene and Cass both were alums from Terra's program. So there's Climate Draft, and there's all these amazing things which are happening in the climate ecosystem that you should absolutely take advantage of. I think the reason why community is so strategic is not just for your own personal journey, but for what we're trying to do here. So the reason why we think this 100 million number is important is not because we have derived it from some Gartner report or God forbid McKinsey report out there that this is the number of people that are required. This is because it also comes from our theory of change about how climate action and climate solutions become sticky, become the way the world works. And so we need 100 million people to draw their livelihood, their sustenance, and their meaning from climate solutions across the world, not just in the US, for it to truly become something that we hand over to the next generation. Now, for that to happen, it'll not happen just by Terra or Climate Base or any of the other amazing companies out there. It'll happen because each of you goes out and seeks out to build a tribe. And then that tribe then goes out to influence another 10, 100,000 people in their orbit. And that's why this community building is really, really important, especially in a world where literally which side of the bed you wake up on, and this totally happens to me. I either wake up saying, oh my God, we're just going to crush this biggest problem that humanity has ever had, or the other side of the bed where we're all going to die. And this is how it's going to be for the next 20, 30 years, especially as we have kids and we see the effects that are happening in our local environment, our local politics. So for you to be able to find a tribe, and you may find it anywhere, for you to be able to find that tribe is very important for your psychological safety. And of course, for your transactional benefit of building your career in climate. But go seek that out and come to Terra for that. Come to any of these amazing companies for that, or build your own.
Awesome. I couldn't agree with the stuff that Anshuman said more. I think as it relates to top talent, the last thing I'll say is, find your purpose, find the thing that you're most passionate about. What is your gift? I came to Climate frustrated right after the California wildfires, stressed out and terrified about the future of the world. And I said, what is the gift that I might have to give? And I'm like, well, I know how to build teams. Let me figure out how to use that to contribute. So I think everybody has a gift to give. Figure out what that is, and figure out where you can apply it. And maybe with that, I'll kick it back to you, Jack.
Thank you both so much. That brings us to the end of this session. If you're able to post in the chat, maybe just share where people can find you after this session if they want to follow up or follow along with your work. And I will pass it back over to either Jordan or Maiko, whoever is facilitating our transition here.
Hi everyone. I hope you found this session so useful. I was following along, taking down gems and notes between Anshuman and Dolly. Jack, you're a fantastic moderator, so thank you for asking the right questions. We will be starting the next session in about 2 minutes. So once again, if you want to make a quick tea, have a quick toilet break, we will be starting the next session in 2 minutes. But thank you, Jack, Dolly, and Anshuman.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.